British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush compensation scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush compensation scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush compensation scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush compensation scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. British Nationality Act 1948. All right. Okay, let's take that out of the stream, shall we? I hope those of you who watch our previews in the run-up to the shows, I hope you find the previews informative. So this is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Yes, you have to believe it's ours for the taking. How are you feeling? It's great here in London town. I got to tell you something. It's a beautiful blue sky here in London. Yes, I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good. I hope you're feeling invigorated. I hope you're feeling strong. Be positive. That's the way forward. Be positive. That's where you gain your strength. Be positive. And then anything is possible. Anything is possible. Good, good, good. Now let's begin, shall we? Let's first of all, let's acknowledge GalaxyAffiliate.net. I'm not sure if Iron King has taken us from night today. I didn't hear his voice the past 30 minutes, but I assume he's somewhere out there in the ether. Yeah? Aye. Long may his work continues. Long may his work continue. And you know, I've got to say to people here, GalaxyAffiliate.net is an outstanding digital radio station. As you know, this show goes out via GalaxyAffiliate.net. Also, of course, and those of you can see on the screen, that we also go out via, of course, YouTube. under The Motivator Show. Please go there, give us a like, thumbs up, and of course, subscribe for free. No cost to yourself. You're told about advanced shows as they come up. We're also, of course, on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Again, under The Motivator Show. That's The Motivator Show. DE space underscore motivator underscore show. We're also going out live via Facebook. Yes, Facebook as well. Live and direct. Again, under The Motivator Show. And of course, we go out live audio only on Mixcloud under The Motivator Show. And of course, we go out live via galaxyafiri.net. And of course, post shows, you'll see our TikTok account, and of course, take advantage of it. Follow us on TikTok. Spread the word about The Motivator Show on TikTok as well. It is a fantastic platform. Spread the words. Positive messages for a positive audience. Long may you stay faithful to The Motivator Show. All right. I'm going straight into it this time. Straight into it. First of all, last Saturday's show, wasn't that a positive experience? Yeah? Wasn't that a positive experience? And some of you recall, the focus was on how to create personal wealth and how to create positive interdependence. Wasn't she a fantastic presenter? You know, we all know Dr. Carlton Brown, but of course, he surrounds himself with such positive people, such absolutely positive people. And of course, we're fortunate to have one of these organizers, one of the main organizers of the Black Entrepreneurs Conference. But of course, they gave life to the Black Entrepreneurs Conference Business Masterclass, which begins in a few weeks' time here in London on the 3rd of May, in Bristol on the 19th of April, in Birmingham on the 18th of April, in Manchester on the 10th of April. And if you haven't got your tickets yet, I recommend you do so at £49 for the high quality business advice and connection that you're going to create. Oh my gosh, £49 is a tremendous investment in yourself, your family, and of course, your futures. I recommend and commend this event to you. I commend this event to you. Those of you who can see on screen, go to Eventbrite, and that's the Black Masterclass 2024. It's part of the Entrepreneurs Conference. I commend that event to you. Long may the works of Dr. Carlton Brown continue now and well into the future. They are adding value to our community, and long may that work continue. Well done, Dr. Carlton Brown. Well done to you all. I also want to give light and recognize, of course, that these podcasts, these shows are resonating, they're impacting with the community. You know, there are many who've been very resistant to the positive messages, but those messages are getting through. We are having that impact. We are shifting the ground, changing attitude, taking control, raising our energy levels, displaying our strengths. That is the purpose of these shows, these podcasts, to inform, to empower, to motivate, and to galvanate our energy towards positive goals for positive people. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Yeah? Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So thank you for the positive replies I've had so far. Let me make a slight adjustment to my equipment here. Perfect. That's perfect. Now, I also want to recognize that I've got a number of guests coming forward in the coming weeks who will be equally as positive as the show last Saturday. Okay, and the previous Saturdays, yeah? And the previous Saturdays to that, I've got an outstanding lineup of positive, forward-thinking, truly galvanizing people from the community, willing to share their messages with you. Oh yeah, and I hope you will give them your support. Okay, I hope you will give them your support. But before I go into the lifestyle messages, I want to give a big shout out to Brother Near of the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools. Okay. Why do I want to give a big shout out to him? Again, he's an example of an ordinary man, just an ordinary man, but with a big heart and willing to give up time and effort and focus in support of our children, our youngsters. When I say children, for my age, that could be up to 35 and 40. Yeah, I know. Yes, they're the future. We must invest in our children. So I want to give praise and respect to all of you who are involved in the supplementary schools movement, supplementary schools, Saturday schools, after school movement, in supporting our children's academic and social and spiritual development. A crucial part of a community is to function well. So I give light and give promotion to the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools, their website address. If you wish to contact your local supplementary academic or cultural centers that's been led by our communities, our communities. This is the organization to go to. And if you run an organization that is not currently registered with the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools, I commend and recommend that you do so. So the website address is www.nabss.org.uk. The email address, it's info@nabss.org.uk. You can speak to Brother Near directly on 07958 348 558. A community that works together grows together. I'm going to say it again. A community that works together grows together. That's the only way forward, yeah? The only way forward. Remember, success is ours for the taking. Yes, I'm alive. I'm feeling good. I am feeling good. I'm surrounded by positive people, so I can feel no other way but positive, forward-thinking, absolutely determined. Long may that continue, and it will continue that way. So let me go into the next segment, which is, of course, the most crucial part of the show, he says. Well, your opinion. The lifestyle messages. Yes, they are crucial. They're important because far too many members of our communities have ailments. Far too many members of our community die before their time. And I say that with no pleasure whatsoever. Many of you be aware that I am an elected official. I'm a councillor. Yeah? And even if I did want to see the official figure there plunked directly in front of myself, right in front of my eyes, and I see the stats, and when it relates to people of African heritage and indeed South Asian heritage, they are very concerning, very concerning. And there's much that we can do to reduce the levels of illnesses and early death within our community. But we have to make that decision to do so. Okay? We have to make that decision to do so. And I know for many, because you form habits, it is difficult. It is difficult. And I get it. I understand. And that's why every show, every podcast, I'll spend 15, 20 minutes focused on lifestyle messages. because I know it's getting through. I know we are creating a wave, and that wave needs to become an enormous wave to wash over all members of the community. So we take responsibility for our health and not become victims to habits that were formed in our early stages of life. The figures are concerning, and it's not enough for us to ignore them or say to someone over there, because that someone over there may be the future husbands or wives for your sons and daughters, your nieces, your nephews. Yeah. So we are a community, and therefore we've got to behave as such. A community that works together grows together. It is so true. It is not trite. It is simply the truth. Okay. So let me go straight into it. And I just want to make sure this time my words resonate with you. Okay. So let's bring it up on the screen, shall we? Let's bring it up on the screen. There you go. Lifestyle messages. Okay. They're important because they address how we live our lives and most importantly, what we put into our bodies. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you consume each day. Okay, sugar is one of those ingredients, particularly in relation to children. We give them in the form of sweets, and we smile and we say, "I have this, child, because this will make you happy," and it does make us happy. But I was very happy as a child when I was given sweet, and of course, the reason for that is because the molecules that make up sugar are very similar to the molecules that are part of the hormonal secretion in our brains, in our bodies. Yeah? That's why it's easy for us to become addicted to sugar, as I still am, but I have it under control. And being of Jamaican heritage, I'll say, I have it under heavy manners. Yeah? I will not concede to the urge. Understand? So I ask you to consider the amount of sugar that you are consuming. Yeah, I no longer purchase sugar from the grocery stores. I no longer add sugar to my teas, to my coffees. I completely withdraw wherever possible consuming sugar in the form of those tin drinks or those long bottles of sweet drinks or those, give me, ice creams and so on. Yeah. Under heavy manners, I no longer purchase such things, okay? And if I was to consume it, it's always in very small quantities. Strict control. Strictly control the urges to consume sugar. Yeah. It is a big problem in the community. The Vice Chancellor of the University of West Indies, Professor Hilary Beckles, commented in a speech some years ago that in his own family network, his immediate family, the instances of diabetes was extremely high. Here in Britain, the levels of diabetes in relation to the other communities that make up Britain in the African, Caribbean, African continental communities, it is way above national levels. Yeah. In other words, far too many members of our communities possess this condition, diabetes. Yeah, where the pancreas and the secretion of necessary hormone to break down sugar is not working properly. So I ask you to consume in moderation. Where possible, don't add sugar to your diet. It's unnecessary because it's already prevalent in most of the foods that you consume. I know it's difficult and it's a big ask. I get it, but it's an important message for you. In every other family in our community, someone is either aware they've got diabetes or is unaware they have diabetes, nearly 40 to 50%. A ridiculous amount, ridiculous percentage. Here in Britain, the British NHS spends more than £24 billion. I say again, £24 billion alone treating people with diabetes. Gosh. I equally ask you to consider the amount of salt that you consume. Again, this is one of those salts that we add to our food in order to enhance the flavors. Honestly, that's complete nonsense. Absolute nonsense. What we do, we coat the food so we no longer taste the food. We taste the salt. And we've become used to tasting the salt. Therefore, to withdraw the salt means the food no longer tastes the same. When I discovered that to be a fact, the food was awful. It was awful. But I learned and I was determined to adjust my consciousness in relation to foods that salt was being regularly added to. It took time. But again, I no longer purchase salt from the grocery store. As a result, now that I've been able to make that mental change, it was purely a mental phenomenon. It wasn't a physical urge. It was a mental phenomenon, habit formed as a child. So I urge you all to hear the message, to control very carefully the intake of sugar and salt. And salt, of course, being a primary cause for hypertension, high blood pressure, which is prevalent in our communities. 1 in 3, 1 in 4 of our community members have hypertension. Ridiculous figures. These are ridiculous figures. We must hear these messages. For you, your loved ones, your families, your friends, and wider community's sake, it is so important that you hear these messages. I also, of course, when thinking about these 2 ingredients, have to also consider the other ingredients that we are regularly consuming in excessive amount. And you'll see in a moment the next group, in fact, is carbohydrate. A pretty basic ingredient, I've got to tell you, primarily derived in our case from wheat and, of course, some root vegetables such as potatoes and yams. Yeah? Here's a challenge for us. The challenge is, of course, is the overconsumption of carbohydrates, which we consume and store as energy in our bodies. Yeah? And therefore, we consume far too much, but our bodies assume that we're storing up the carbohydrate, therefore, for a rainy day. Yeah, that's what our bodies believe, which is why, of course, carbohydrates contribute to the obesity levels, the fatness levels, the overweight levels within our community. Yeah. It is a biggie. You walk along any street where you see people of African heritage or indeed South Asian heritage in concentration. And there you will see every other second a person who is overweight. A person who is overweight. The effect in our community is profound. It is profound, and it's directly related to how we live our lives. It's not what people are doing to us, it's what we're doing to ourselves. And of course, the other ingredient, which we don't consciously add, but is prevalent in certain foods, and that is, of course, fat. And it's, again, a curious one, and you've got examples on the screen of raw meat. You can see the meat because it's red. You can see the fat because it's actually white. It's very distinctive. Can you imagine it's in solid form at room temperature? Just imagine what happens when it goes into your body. Yeah? Just imagine. I want you to focus on that thought. This fat is prevalent in the meat in vast quantities. Dairy products are just another form of bovine or cow's fat. I ask you to think carefully about the amount of meat and indeed, consequently, the amount of fat that you're consuming each day. It is a challenge. It is a challenge because once it's cooked, it's not visible. So you assume it's no longer there. But actually, when you grill your meat, you can see it. But once it's cooked, you've cooked it with the fat included. That's the problem. It can therefore lead to what is a biggest problem in the communities. This is the restricted arterial flows. In other words, the fat, the carbohydrate, the starch, what I'll come on to shortly, okay, develop solid matter inside your arteries and restrict the blood flow. You can see it on the screen. This is what's happening internally to your bodies. Restricted blood flows. Yeah. The challenge here, of course, it means that your heart has to pump with greater intensity, contributing to raising your blood pressure. And you can see you don't need to be too clever to work out to have this condition, and far too many of us have these conditions in our bodies right now, where we have restricted blood flows, yeah, but all the other consequences that this can cause. I say to you, think carefully about what you put into your body, because this is a consequence, and the damage to your bodies can be life-changing. I say it with no pleasure whatsoever, but it's necessary to demonstrate to you what is actually happening inside your bodies. The last ingredient I must give light to is, of course, starch. Starch is, again, another one of these pernicious ingredients in our foods, typically found in rice. Yes, and I'm going to say it. I'm from the Caribbean, Jamaican, and yes, rice and peas, and I hear the Jamaican roaring now as well. And of course, yes, West Africans in particular. Yes, I'm going to cite you now. Oh dear. Yes, the jollof rice. Too much jollof rice. Too much rice and peas. The quantities are just too great. We're told by the expert we should consume no more than a fistful of food per sitting. But you see far too many men and women with large plates of rice, yeah, eating far too much rice, which we store in our body in the form of energy. And the assumption is, here we go, the assumption is that we're storing this energy for a rainy day. Yeah, that's what our bodies assume. Why on earth would you consume quite so much of it if you're not storing for a rainy day? Yeah. You see the other examples of starch in our food. You see these wonderful looking, I say wonderful looking, see, note my language, those wonderful fairy cakes and biscuits, yeah? You can see it, we love to give this to children. Bad. I cannot understate it that we're teaching our children bad habits, poor habits, and these habits will have long-lasting impact on our children's health and well-being. I know, I get it, but we've got to rethink what we give to our children. Let fruits and vegetables be the focus. Pretty them up in ways that makes it attractive to our child. I know that teachers and others will be able to do this, but it's not necessary to give our children these fairy cakes. And see what they're doing at the moment? Oh my gosh, when I was a baby, I used to think it was heaven. Now I'm an adult. I now see the truth, that the consequences are clearly on screen. You see the bodies on screen, yeah? In parts of the bar that I live, the levels of obesity are amongst the top 10 levels in the country, top 5 in the country, in the bar that I reside in, which has a significant African population. The largest West African population in the country is concentrated in the same bar that I live in. You can see the effects, the bloated shoulders, the bloated chest, the bloated abdomens, the bloated thighs, the bloated bottom. You can see it on the screen. This is overweightness, and we can avoid it. And I say to people, do not shame members of your family, members of your community who are in this condition. We must embrace and love them so we can give them the power, the energy required in order to overcome this condition. But it will take considerable work. you can see both men and women on the screen who are demonstrating the effect of overeating, lack of exercise, which I can come on to in a moment, and of course, the long-term implications, of course. I'll leave you to go to your own doctors and let the professionals tell you what the long-term impact is likely to be. The expert, of course, will recommend that we've got to eat far more natural fruits and vegetables. You can see on the screen, you can see the beetroot, the tomato, the celery. You can see the melons, the oranges, and the grapes. You can see the noriega, the pumpkin seed. Yeah, you see the cucumber. You can see the avocado, the pears. Yeah, you can see this is beautiful food that our bodies crave for, food that our bodies can convert into plasma, blood in other words, build the flesh, build our minds. Yeah, this is what our bodies crave for. Yeah, you see the apples, see the limes, you see the lemons there. Yeah, you can see the beautiful food. This is what our bodies crave, and this is what I strongly recommend wherever possible. Untainted food, not the processed food, untainted food is what our bodies crave. This is what human beings, our species, Homo sapiens, were evolved on, not the processed food that we typically consume today. And I say to you, hear this message. Hear this message. This is what the recommended food you should eat. You see the tomatoes, you see the corn there, yeah. You see the celeries, yeah. You see the pumpkin, you see the nuts, the hazelnuts, yeah, the walnuts, yeah. You see the celery. This is the food our bodies crave. This is what it craves. You see the cabbages, cucumber. You see it all there, yeah. This is what our bodies crave. Give the body, our body, what it requires, so it will treat you well. And of course, the recommended water intake by the expert is between 2 to 3 liters of water per day. But the foods I've just demonstrated all contain water. Consuming at least 2 to 3 liters of water per day is a necessary part of who we are as human beings, because we are more than 70% water. So water is life, okay? Particularly if it's appropriate water. It is absolutely life. I recommend that you drink the appropriate amount of water each day. It is life. It is vital to your general health and well-being. But of course, having said all that, having talked about food, having talked about water, it is vital that you exercise. Otherwise, what happened previously doesn't have any impact if you're not exercising. You see the young lady here with her weights, yeah? You see the elderly gentleman running with his headphones in. You see the lady running up and down the stairs. You see the other young man doing his press-ups, all part of the health regime. Exercise is life. Exercise is life. And if in doubt, please seek out professional advice. Go to a gym or join a group of people with like minds who want to exercise together. It is a vital part of who we are as human beings. Exercising is a critical part of who we are as human beings. You should exercise every day. And to combine all what I've described to you so far, it's so important that you take care of your mental and spiritual health. And many of you will be aware that if in doubt with regards to your mental health, I say to you, seek out professional advice. If in doubt, speak to whoever you most trust. Outline the situation to them. And I trust that such a person, if they care for you, will give you the support or at least help you to obtain the professional advice that you need. And of course, we are, of course, a spiritual people as African peoples. It therefore means that you should consult your spiritual advisors. Taking care of your spiritual needs is an integral part of who we are as human beings. But these messages are only worthwhile if you respond, if you share these messages with your loved ones, your families, your friends' networks, and beyond. because ultimately we must, I urge you, translate our words into action, because success is ours for the taking. That success means that you're taking action to uphold and nurture your body to good health. That's what it means. Success is ours for the taking. You choose, you take that deliberate step. You take that deliberate step to enhance and promote your own health and well-being. Yeah? That's what's important for you. That's what's important. So nevertheless, stay strong. Stay strong. And remember, if in doubt, ask for help. Yeah? Ask for help. All right. Let me take that out now. Take that out. I hope those messages see you well. But please share that message with the wider community. Because as I said before, the figures for diabetes, hypertension, for cancers, for lung conditions, for obesity, in other words, fatness in the community, is just off the scale. And that's only because those impositions and platforms like this are not advocating sufficiently for healthy lifestyle. So those of you who have platforms, yeah, who are influencers, I urge you to promote healthy lifestyles amongst your audiences. Anyway, there you are. That's enough for one day. I hope those messages find you well. Okay. So now, what I want to do is now go to the topic of the day, which is, of course, Windrush. And the Windrush compensation scheme. Okay, this has been an ongoing issue for some years now. Many of you be aware, ever since a previous prime minister, Conservative prime minister, acknowledged the hostile environment in the Home Office. Yeah, the hostile environment. In other words, ordinary people who are innocent will be treated awfully, badly by the Home Office without due consideration to their condition, and thereby have a negative impact on the economic well-being, because it has to have some economic impact on Britain. Yeah? Long-term impact, negative impact. But we, the people, can make the difference. In the bar that I live, okay, the motto for the council, which was a fair future for all, which still remains the fundamental premise, but it's now been further articulated. That is powered by the people. Yeah, isn't it fantastic? Powered by the people. Powered by the people. And I believe that is the right stance. Yeah, all change are ultimately powered by the people. Okay, so if we want to see change in relation to Windrush, we must come together in common aim and common purpose. Okay, just like the other organisation, which I haven't mentioned yet, came together in relation to exercising. Okay. In fact, I might just take a few minutes. I've got maybe a few minutes. I should just mention them. Yeah, I think I will mention them. In discussing our health and how to develop healthy lifestyles, what I'm heartened by are the number of organizations who come together in common aim and common purpose. Yeah. So these organizations come together to exercise together, put in their resources and understanding the critical nature that come together to exercise together, promote exercise and healthy living. So I'm going to play it. I was going to miss it, but this time I will play it. Now I've seen that message. I will play it. Okay. I get it. You know, when I try to say the format of the program, I'm getting messages telling me, no, you must do it. Continue to do it. I will do it. I'm going to play the countdown video, okay, before we go into the main thrust of today's show. Let's play the countdown video. These are Africans who have come together in common aim and common purpose, exercise together, observe their work. And this could and should be you. Let's play it. Let's play it.
Why we don't use our blood and enjoy the time? Follow the Lord, me to do with somebody. Why the time for always get sometimes every day? This one we all feel we said that nobody young. If I get too much when I'm done, you're better than you young. Balance we on the bed, no other money young. So if I need you say see if I know so you go live the vida, calling one woman who let you learn me. You need to let me man la parolipa. That's my file following like my fire. Nobody know what you do on the ocean. So every day I feel like tear ocean. I stay in the judgment state. I'm fucking for you, step. Nobody know what you love, you can't see your step. All one defect for you, step. Everybody allow what you the one that find it. Enjoy our will. It's better now with it. Power, no, the body, it's our will. Enjoy our will. It's better now with it. Power, no, every day. I see the also the book. I'm for the loose money, one, no one, lots of money, nobody make the money. As long as you get ready, I'm for the loose money, one, no one. This one we all feel we said, nobody young. If I get what you want, we're going to do it better than you young. Balance we all the bed, no other money young. So if I need you say, see if I know so you go live the vida. Calling one woman who let you learn me. You let me man la parolipa. You feel for it, for it. That's my file following like my fire. Then you really love me, said the love. What you love me more now, you love forever. Nobody know what you do on the ocean. So every day I feel like tear ocean. I stay in the judgment state. I'm fucking for you, step. Nobody know what you love, you can't see your step. All one defect for you, step. Everybody allow what you the one that might be. Enjoy our will. It's better now with it. The body, it's our will. Enjoy our will. It's better now with it.
Wow, wasn't that something, huh? Wasn't that something? I'm always when I watch them doing their exercises, I've got to tell you, you're so inspiring. You know, come together. They recognise they've come together in common aim and common purpose. You know, understanding that they've got to take their health in their own hands, take control, and it's a lot easier when you're working with others to exercise together. You notice the majority of them were overweight. Yeah. You know, that's why I've got to commend them for their courage. Yeah, yeah. I've got to commend them for their courage. Well done to all of them. Yeah, yeah. Now then, what I just want to say then, let me now go back to the topic at hand. Okay, in recognizing that there's another group of Africans taking their health in their hand and taking control. That's what we want to see more often. Yeah, that we're taking control of our health, taking responsibility for what is happening around us. Because we have the strength, we have the ability to transform, to be transformative. Yeah, yeah. Now, that's what's going to happen today. That's going to happen today. Further examples of us being a transformative peoples. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in my guest into the studio in a moment, and I'm going to hopefully, without any technical problems, conduct an interview that will focus on Windrush, those pioneers, and the after effects of the hostile environment. Okay, we're going to have a real discussion. We're going to look at this subject in detail, and we are going to make sure that at the end of it, you are better informed, but most critically, that not only are you better informed, that you feel able to respond, to act, to actually take actions that might protect yourself, your loved ones, and indeed your friends' network. Okay? So let's see if we can first, we'll just bring my first guest into the studio. Let's see if I can get this working. Let's see if this works. Okay, let's see if it works. Let's try one more time. There we go. Oh, it worked. Oh, Maureen, can you hear? Fine?
I can.
You can? Oh, keep talking. How are you this fine morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Let me adjust your volume. You've got a lovely soft voice. You know you don't mind me saying that. And there you go. That's wonderful. And I also have another person who's in the waiting room, Tanika. Is that right?
Yes, that's my colleague who I've worked very closely with on a lot of the Windrush issues.
Let me bring Tanika into the studio as well. There you go. And Tanika, can you hear us as well?
Yes, I can.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Two lovely ladies. I feel honoured now, you see. Oh, come on. Long may our women continue to assert themselves, yeah? And show their strengths, yeah?
Not usually so early in the morning.
Oh, come on now. Look, at around 4:35, I go out for a good run, you know, exercise vigorously, which is why I feel so alive by this time. I commend that lifestyle to you. That's what I want to say, right?
Right.
Anyway, good. It's good to speak to you both. I know that one of your colleague Roland might join us possibly. I understand.
Yes,
That's right. So he's now got the link. So hopefully, if he wants to join us, he can. And I'm going to go straight into this because I'm just conscious of time. And there's a lot of ground to cover. And I want to make sure that at the end of this interview, that the audience are better informed, but they feel empowered, not simply to receive the information, but to respond to the information by taking direct action, either for themselves, their loved one, or their friends' network. This is the greatest challenge we have as a community. It's how well we disseminate information, and indeed how well we encourage members of the community to respond to what is really positive but necessary information for which they should respond to. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into this. So first of all, Tanika and Maureen, thank you for accepting my invitation to interview this morning. Okay.
You're welcome.
I'm going to assume, but I need to ask the question just for the purpose of my audience. You are daughters of Windrush pioneers. Am I right in saying that, first of all?
Yes, we are. We are, definitely.
Okay. And can I ask you from which part of the Caribbean?
Yes, well, my parents originate from Jamaica.
Okay.
Tanika's parents, you're different, aren't you?
Guyanese. We're Guyanese.
From where, sorry?
Guyana.
Oh, Guyana. Ooh, wonderful Guyana. In fact, this
Beautiful Guyana.
I, from Guyana.
That's the motto. Oh, beautiful Guyana.
Ah, I see. I'm always getting pulled up. Thank you. Thank you. That's really, so you have a stake and intimately understand what is happening and been happening to our communities. Okay. Can I, before I get into the issue of Windrush, I just want to contextualize what we're about to discuss so the audience better understand the legal framework that we are operating within. Now, I immediately go to, and I'm happy to be corrected by yourself, by the 1948 British Nationality Acts. And what I seek to then to do is understand its importance to our community. Okay, and of course, both of you will be very familiar with the Act, I'm sure. Okay. But just for the purposes of the community, what I'm going to do, if I may, ladies, is just put details of the Act on screen. But I want those who are shy, those who've been resistant to the advice that they need to regulate their position here in Britain. I understand why they're shy and don't want to show themselves, but what I wanted to make sure is understood the legal framework and the strengths of their cases. Okay, now, and so I'm going to put up on the screen, and just bear with me for a second. Let me put up on the screen, and you tell me. You're the expert. I'm but just a bug-eyed buddy from across the sea, if you like. Okay, so let me put up on the screen now. You tell us and just take us through this, just so that the audience can better understand what it actually means. Okay, let's put it on the screen now. If you can see that, so I've gone to the website here in Britain called the legislation.gov.uk. And I brought up the British Nationality Act 1948. Okay. Now then, there's an interesting aspect of this act which I just want to refer to. I'm going to read a part of it, then I'm just going to ask you both to interpret what I've just read, just for benefit of my audience. So, the British Nationality Act 1948, but this is Chapter 56. Now, I'll read on. An act to make provision for British nationality and for citizenship of the United Kingdom and the colonies for the purposes connected with the matter aforesaid. Okay, now I'll go into the first number one, which is noted number one. Every person under this act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies who, under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3 of this section of the citizens of that country, shall, by virtue of that citizenship, have the status of a British subject. I'll go on to number 2, and then I'm just going to ask you both to give an interpretation of what I've just read out. Number 2, any person having the status aforesaid may be known either as a British subject or as a Commonwealth citizen, and accordingly, in this Act and in any other enactment or instrument whatsoever, whether passed or made before or after the commencement of this Act, the expression British subject and the expression Commonwealth citizen shall have the same meaning. Now, I'll just read the number 3, and then I'll ask for your interpretation. The following are the countries hereinbefore referred to, that is to say, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the Union of South Africa, Newfoundland, India, Pakistan, so-called Southern Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and Ceylon, and indeed Sri Lanka these days. Okay, can you just give us, just for the purposes of the audience, give us an interpretation of what those words mean, either one of you?
Right. Well, I'll just go very briefly because there's a lot of long-winded words in there which don't seem to would make sense to the average
Indeed.
person. But in a nutshell, what the British Nationality Act sought to do was to define British nationality by creating what we call a status of citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies. Now, when I say citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies, you will understand that that included all the Commonwealth countries that Britain conquered back in the day. So it sought to set up citizens in Britain of those colonies and gave them sole citizenship in the United Kingdom for those people in those different colonies. So that's what it sought to determine.
Yes. So just to be clear, and I want you to say it again, but very slowly, because it's such an important point. Yep. Up to 1988. Just say that again, what you just said. So if you were born in the colonies, and particularly if those colonies were not independent, yeah,
right,
you were considered to be British.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what that piece of legislation sought to do. Okay. Whether it achieved it, well, it obviously didn't because we're here today.
Indeed.
But that was the basis of what that piece of legislation. So, like he says, no matter where you were in the world under the colonies, you were understood to be British.
Yes. Wow. And such a profound, when you actually read the Act and you then appreciate its implications, okay, you therefore have a reasonable basis, a really firm basis upon which to acknowledge a previous British Prime Minister's words, I don't need to call the name, that in fact, those of the Windrush generation, so-called Windrush generation, are indeed British. Yep.
Precisely.
Tanika, I see put her hand up. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't want to interject by voice. I thought I'll just give an indication. To even go further to what Maureen said and to what you read, the motivator, what the 1948 piece of legislation sought to do, and list of countries at Section 1, subsection 3, which you've read out, they've made a distinction between citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies and Commonwealth citizens.
Yes.
And I would like to explain the difference because there is a difference and implication to people now with regards to Windrush, why it's very, very important.
Yeah.
As Maureen correctly said, citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies were considered British, but by birth. That's what the law stated. Hence the CUKC. So up to the point of 1948, which the act was enacted 1st of January 1949, if you were still a CUKC, that's the abbreviated version of citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies, then you were British, but by birth, and you have all the rights. So you can come here, like when the Windrush generation were invited over.
That's right.
You need visas and stuff like that.
That's right.
However, going specifically to Section 1, subsection 3 with a list of countries, those countries either already had their independence from the British Empire, or they were seeking independence around the same time that the 1948 Act was introduced and to be enacted in 1949. What that meant for said people or those countries or citizens of those countries was that you no longer enjoy the right of a citizen, even though you weren't born in England. There were now going to be some restrictions to your travels should you want to come to Britain. But that wasn't made clear to a lot of people back then. They just thought it carried over after they gained their independence, which saw a lot of people who were already in Britain, 1960s especially, after they came 1948, when their home countries gained their independence, their status automatically reverted if did not naturalize or register, which would have been the case registration, as British nationals.
Right. I understand. And just for further clarification, what was the significance of 1971-72? What happened in Britain in terms of the Immigration Act in that years? Can you just give us an interpretation? Who will go first?
Well, up
Maureen,
until
Maureen always leads.
well, I don't mind you leading, but I mean, I suppose we can both have our view. But up until 1971, you had the Commonwealth Immigration Act of 1962 and 1968.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, with our client who we are doing the JR for him, the 1971 gave him a new right of entry into the UK, a right that he wouldn't have got under the 1960 and 68 legislation. So in 1971, they said that you could get indefinite leave to enter or remain, no matter where you were in the world. He had already been here and lived here 6 years and went to Trinidad and come back. So it gave to those people a new right of entry into the UK, or the chance for those who were here already, indefinite leave to remain.
Right.
Although I think sometimes we have to remember that when the government gives us one thing in one hand, there's always a catch-all where they take it away in the next. But
we'll come to that, yes.
We'll come to that eventually.
But so that's just provided some context in which we're discussing. So those, particularly those who were born prior to these countries gaining independence, they were born British. I think that's the important word, because I've got some in my own age group, as it were, who believe that they were not born British. But actually, particularly in my case, Jamaica, if you're born prior to August 1962, you were born British. It's pretty clear, and therefore they cannot refuse your application for a British passport. They cannot refuse. They may resist. They may delay, obfuscate, but ultimately they cannot refuse. Now, I want to say that because I want to encourage people to come forward. Because even here in my part of London, I'm encountering, particularly from my own land of Jamaica, people who have not stepped forward. Okay, and we need to give them the encouragement, the confidence that they should step forward. Okay, because they're now approaching pension age and really needs to have this matter resolved. Okay, whole purpose of these shows is to empower, to encourage, to translate words into action so that we are empowered. Okay, so let me now just take this on. Now we've begun the process of contextualizing why we're having this discussion. Now, you're both, of course, with Patrick Vernon, part of the Windrush Legal Advice Clinic in Wolverhampton. Is the purpose of your clinic to provide advice, or do you actually pursue cases? Just want to be clear, first of all. Are you simply an advisory team, or do you actually pursue cases on behalf of clients?
We do advise clients. And some of our more knowledgeable clients are able to access the information that we give them over the phone or by video link and complete Windrush application forms themselves or status updates themselves. But we do, when you say take cases on, we will challenge Home Office decisions on behalf of our claimants. Okay. So if they've rejected their decision, we will try and challenge and fight back on that decision. Because within the Windrush umbrella, there's policies and stages of review and appeal. In terms of going outside of court, not necessarily, unless you're really having an issue with the way the Home Office has handled the case, and this is where your judicial review will come into play.
Okay.
I want to quickly say that although we're the legal advice clinic in Wolverhampton, Tanika runs the Liverpool Advocates for Windrush in Liverpool, and she does the same thing. So we liaise quite a lot across the country with the clients in Liverpool and the clients down here in the West Midlands.
Excellent, excellent. The only way forward is where these organisations are collaborating, coordinating at a strategic level. Our approach to government, because this is the problem. It's the current government we have. Good, and thank you, Tanika, for taking the time to join us today. I'd love to see, that's the only way forward. Collaboration is the only way forward. So you've said that you do give advice and you do pursue cases on behalf of clients as well. There was a reason why I asked that question, because of course, I know particularly here in London, there are quite a number of advisory channels, but don't take up cases. It's interesting, which is why that question needs to be asked. Let me now take it forward. One of the reasons why you're here is, of course, that you said through to myself the details of the judicial review for the Mr. Simon Thompson and his father, a returning resident. Okay, I've read up details on this particular case, but can I ask you just to explain, assuming that Mr. Thompson doesn't mind, of course, explain the details of this case and its potential wider implication. But before you do that, I just want to acknowledge your other colleague who's joined us, Ronan. Can you hear us, Ronan? Can you hear us? He can't hear. Don't worry. Go, let's continue in that case. He'll join us in a second, momentarily. Just explain this Mr. Simon Thompson's case, just to understand the details and its wider implications. Who wishes to answer first?
Well, Mr. Simon Thompson's case stems from a returning resident application. He applied to a return back. His father made the application. His son is advocating on his behalf. Applied to made the application to return to the UK under the Windrush scheme. Having tried to return to the UK in 1988 and was and his father was refused indefinite leave to remain. They landed him as a visitor instead of him being able to exercise his indefinite leave to remain. The Home Office refused his returning resident application based on the fact that they believed he didn't have strong enough ties in the UK and that he'd been out of the country too long. However, Mr. Simon Raffer's argument is he hasn't his leave has not lapsed, which is what Section 1(2) of the Immigration Act states, that if you leave the country for more than 2 years, your leave would have lapsed. His judicial review centres around the fact that you need to have travelled the common travelled area in order for that leave to have lapsed. And he has argued in his judicial review that, well, I haven't travelled across this travelled common area, so how has my leave lapsed? Further, when I was landed in the UK in 1988 with my father, mother and sisters, you put restrictions on us, which obviously, there's Mr. Rapper there now. They put restrictions on their family, the children and his wife, when they entered the UK, which he argues in his judicial review they did not have the right to do. So those are the two issues in a nutshell, and that's what we're trying to strive to raise funds to fight this judicial review.
Thank you, Boy. Indeed, Mr. Raffer. Thank you for joining us.
My apologies. The time difference screwed me a little bit. So
don't worry. It's the middle of the night, though, isn't it? Now, isn't it? So
yeah, pretty much. I miscalculated the time difference. So I thought we were starting in the next 45 minutes. So my apologies again.
Not a problem. Tell me, so the initial outline has been given to us. How are you feeling now? How are you feeling at the moment? How do you feel about the current situation? Please tell us, how are you feeling?
Well, I feel very disappointed because from my point of view, it seems rather straightforward. It's just that people are not willing to put in the work to read the legislation that applies.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know that might sound biased because I have an interest in this and I see it my way, but I feel strongly that what's written in the legislation is enough for the Home Office and others to make a decision without having to go to the judicial review. From my point of view, it's fairly clear. But again, one, I'm not a lawyer, and I may have a bias, obviously.
And has this cost you money? What impact has it had on your life? This situation.
Well, the judicial review or the actually not being able to
Yeah,
re-enter into the UK.
enter the UK. Yes.
Well, it has cost my father because so my father would have he attempted to return in 1988 because during that time Trinidad was going through a recession, um, and so in 1990 he lost his job and he hasn't worked since. He
Right.
never worked since 19. Essentially, he had to retire then, and that was the end of his working career. So, in anticipation of that, he thought he saw that coming, and he was hoping to re-enter the UK in 1988. But of course, um, that never happened. So
Okay.
it has impacted him, and I guess because of that impact to him, we were essentially impacted as well. Um, so it has been an impact to the whole family. I'll have to say.
I understand you. Can I just double check? So, had he did had he been in the UK prior to 1988?
Have had I been or had my father?
Your father, had he been in the
Right.
UK prior to, or in fact prior to 1968 even? Was he here in the 60s by chance?
Yes, he was. So he was in the UK between the late 50s, 1959 to 1965.
Oh wow! So he's British then.
Sorry.
So he's British.
Well, he wasn't. Well, he
19,
wasn't born in. He wasn't born in the UK, but he was born in Trinidad. And he went to the UK during the time, um, as a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, and so he
so
was there from 1959 to 1965. He studied there, he worked there, and then he returned to Trinidad in 1965.
well, according to the legislation, I'll leave the legal eagles here to tell me otherwise. It says that the term Commonwealth citizen and British citizen were interchangeable under
Yes,
the Act. Yes, am I right?
under the 1948 Act. So a Commonwealth citizen and a British subject were interchangeable.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. There's Tanika. Okay, come on, Tanika. Come on.
Prior to 1948, yes, but the 1948 caused the separation, which is why in section 1, subsection 3, those list of countries are listed, stating that they either had their independence or trying to gain their independence. Therefore, they were no longer going to be CUKCs, but Commonwealth citizens. With CUKCs,
No,
more rights.
that's actually I disagree.
Okay.
So the 1948 Act.
Uh-huh.
The purpose of the 1948 Act really was to keep the Commonwealth together.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an umbrella citizenship called British subjects.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was a British subject once you were born there.
Yep.
The independent countries, they continue to be British subjects, which was equal to Commonwealth citizens.
Right.
And the colonies and the UK were grouped together as a subcategory of British subjects called citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's how it. So independent countries were Commonwealth, and Commonwealth was equal to British subjects. And United Kingdom and colonies were people who were still under the not independent, but also um, and also the UK. So
Yeah.
PUCK was a subset of British subject. So the dominant thing there was British subject.
Okay. Are you legally trained, Mr. Ferguson?
I am not.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
I
Oh,
have definitely not.
He's saying he's not legally trained, but this guy has got an eye for the legislation.
which is sad.
His brain is brilliant.
It is an interesting difference in interpretation, though, but would of course means that if this went to the Supreme Court here in the UK, this would have to be resolved. I'm surprised it's not been resolved once and for all already, and therefore you're using case references. I am surprised by that. Sorry, Tanika, yes.
That's the purpose of the JR. That's what the barrister sought to do with the PAP letter that you received and what the Home Office essentially did with their response. They're basically two different interpretations of the same pieces of legislation.
I agree with you. Because I must say, Mr. Raffer's interpretation was my interpretation as well.
And mine. I agree with your interpretation.
This is healthy. This is so healthy. I got to say, Tanika, I look forward to meeting you in
I am on Mr. Raffer's side just for the purpose of, everybody knowing I do support him.
Yes.
If there's a point that I think could be interpreted differently,
Yeah.
I do bring it to his and Maureen's attention because it's about interpretation. So Raffer, just so you know, I'm on your side.
Yeah, I never doubt that. Trust me, I never doubt that. That part I'm never doubting. But
that's the problem
to
with
me,
legislation. It's open to interpretation, and the reason why we want it to go before a JR judge is for him to look at the two sides of the same coin, so to speak, and decide in which way it should really be interpreted, instead of we having this guessing game as to how we think it should be interpreted.
but you see, for me, it just a little more than that, because I think what people struggle with is understanding that people can acquire indefinite leave while you're outside of the common travel area.
Okay.
If you accept that, then the next step is you have to ask yourself, how does it lapse?
It is true.
Then there's no answer to that question.
It isn't.
The assumption that 99% of people that I've interacted with is that you can only acquire indefinite leave when you're within the common travel area. And so once you leave and the Home Office, and there's a difference between absence of 2+ years and leaving the common travel area. The act that causes the leave to lapse is not the absence, but it is the process of leaving the common travel area. And in every instance, while you're within the UK, you have to leave the common travel area for the leave to lapse.
Right.
That is not true if you're outside of the common travel area.
Okay. Sorry, just pause there. I'm interested to hear, you don't mind, Maureen, I'm going to go back to Tanika because she's got a interesting perspective. Do you agree with that statement? Tanika?
I understand Raffer's interpretation, and it's supported by subsection 34 of the 1971 enacted 1973 Act. It's really interesting. One of the things I fear is that the Home Office doesn't want to accept that interpretation, because if they do, it'll open the floodgates, frankly speaking. Because more people who have been affected by the Windrush scandal are overseas.
Yeah, it is true. Yep.
So, irrespective of how laudable your explanation, interpretation, or assumption of pieces of legislation are that doesn't fit what they want to do, the narrative, it's not going to work. And that is seen, in my opinion, in the answer that was submitted to the PAP letter.
Okay.
I agree with you fully.
Okay.
I agree with you fully.
Thank you. And this possibly now segues into my next round of questions. And it's interesting, and keeping in mind that there will be this recording will be replayed throughout the communities. This discussion is going on. It's an ongoing discussion, and the significant numbers of our peoples here in Britain who have not regularised their position is in question. And this is why this debate, and we need to, I know we won't bottom out today, but we need to provide clarity and confidence that they can come forward. Okay, because the current situation is not acceptable. Okay, so let me just now segue into my sorry, yes, Tanika, yes.
Sorry, one really important point for the listeners, and maybe Maureen and Rafa can help me with this.
Okay.
I find it really ironic that the Windrush scandal was birthed from successive pieces of legislation.
Yes.
The Windrush schemes and said legislations is what informed the Windrush schemes today and being applied to rectify the problem that the same pieces of legislation caused.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense? That's my question to you and the audience.
Well, it doesn't make sense. I have to say, quite frankly, you're all very clever, but I'm a politician, and papers that are presented to me would contradict themselves, and usually presented by extremely clever people. I tend to simply simplify them, and point out the contradiction and ask, I cannot make consistent decisions based upon the evidence you presented to me. And that's what's happened with these legislations. And it is the fault. It's not yourself, it is with the politicians who proceeded to pass these acts of parliament. That's where the problem resides. And we're now asking a Supreme Court judge, a Supreme Court judge, to reconcile part legislation. And this is going to be interesting if that judge is so courageous enough to do so. I suspect my next question is really the important one. Are you supporting the campaign for a Windrush Act, being lobbied, of course, by the honourable and renowned Anthony Brown of the Windrush Defenders, papers have been presented to me, the local politicians. I know MPs have been presented with these papers on why it's necessary to have a Windrush Act. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on a Windrush Act, ultimately to resolve these matters and therefore give confidence to those who are affected by the scandal to step forward to regulate their stay. What's your thoughts? Maureen, first of all, any thoughts on the Windrush Act?
I would support a Windrush Act per se, only because if we have an act that is very straightforward and it can be replaced by the pieces of legislation that they've joined together and discombobulated and made it more straightforward and more simpler for people to understand and process through. Yes. I'm all for getting rid of those pieces of immigration legislation and having a Windrush Act to simplify things, but also in the fact that I think we should have something that recognises the Windrush,
yes,
the Windrush generation's effort and memorialise them and remember them in a piece of legislation. Mm-hmm. So I would be supportive of something like that. Mm-hmm. Recognise what they did for us after World War II, yes. And I don't think we've really truly been given our accolades or our flowers for that.
Thank you. 100%. Tanika, I wonder if you have a different opinion.
Almost definitely, you will get a different one from Tanika.
I look forward to meeting Tanika anyway, come on.
Now you can see why I brought her on the show.
Yeah. I welcome it. You see, go ahead, Tanika.
Okay, I shall play Angel's Advocate. Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought about this question last time after Maureen sent them over, preliminary questions where we may be asked. Mm-hmm. And a Windrush Act is needed. Mm-hmm. However, my concern, Maureen, for it is that what are you going to put in this act? Mm-hmm. Now, what's the point of taking precious time in creating a separate piece of legislation to add to the ones we already have when the ones we have are not fit for purpose? That would be an argument in itself, contracting. You'll think, well, because they're not fit for purpose, we need a new piece, theoretically. However, how about righting the wrongs that the politicians, I said politicians because you use the word a few times now, as yourselves have said you're going to do? And that could be simply by letting the Windrush generation and their descendants, like Mr. Raff and his family, who are abroad, be able to come back. Look at other schemes the Home Office runs, the Hong Kong scheme, Ukrainian scheme, EU schemes, and they're way more favorable than the Windrush schemes. And they have way more experience with those schemes compared to the Windrush from when the Windrush scandal broke. In addition to that, my colleague recently sent me a link with Ukrainian homes. Where's the Windrush homes? Where in the decision letter from the Home Office to Mr. Raffer's appeal, they said that even if we were to allow you in, I'm paraphrasing from memory, even if we were to allow you in, the caseworker assessed it against returning residents. And one of the criteria for that is strong continuing ties. Do you have a business in the UK? Do you have home in the UK? Stuff like that. So that is an X against returning residents from the Windrush schemes. Whereas other schemes, they're being afforded homes, benefits, and everything straight away. Families from the Windrush generation and their descendants, if, for example, Mr. Raffer's dad did get a returning resident issued to him, he would have gotten an NTL, no time limit, stamp to return when he arrived. What about his wife? You have to apply as a spouse joining someone, and she'll have to pay the normal immigration fees, which, as you know, is going to be raising from 18,006. Pardon me. You have to be earning the principal party, and then the additional for every person, whether dependent or spouse, to 30-something thousand now. How is that fair? And you're trying to right the wrong, going back to Amber Rudd's statement, Maureen? I'll ask Maureen to join me here.
Oh, well, it would, like I said earlier, for me, it would be a complete removal of the Immigration Acts, the succession of the Commonwealth immigration, and taking all of that out and replacing it with the Windrush Act. I wouldn't be trying to marry or merge what's already there because it's already murky. What you've got to remember is that these acts were set up as exclusionary acts.
Indeed.
The intention was to exclude Black and brown people from the United Kingdom. Once we understand that was the mentality behind the creation of these pieces of legislation, was to keep Black and brown people out of their country. Now we can understand why a lot of Black and brown people are falling victim to the schemes that they're setting up, because they don't want us here. And we need to challenge that mentality, which is why I would say get rid of the other acts, replace it with a Windrush Act.
Okay. Thank you. And it was interesting to hear that debate, and it really is necessary for ordinary people to hear the debate, because you've framed it and articulated it in using words that most people can access and understand, which is what's important. And thank you for that. Mr. Raffer, you've heard what's been said. I'm hoping that you would agree that a Windrush Act, which therefore reconciles and resolves the contradictions in the prior acts, might be a useful way forward. Would you agree or disagree with that notion?
I think I would agree. I think I would. I like both the points raised by both Tanika and Maureen, but and I think they're both valid. But I think maybe if we did have a new act, it would. That's an opportunity to fix some of the shortcomings of the particular legislation that we have now. I mean, particularly as someone outside of the UK, I think there's a huge gap there for people outside of the UK. The only option we have, for example, is to apply under returning resident. I don't necessarily see my father as a returning resident. Not that he doesn't want to return. I don't see him falling into that category. He falls into the category. So initially, when I started talking to people about this, they were like, well, you don't have enough strong ties, so you're not a returning resident, and the case gets dismissed. Even the form, how you fill out the form, the only option you have is a returning resident, but that's not it. And then there are other issues. I cannot apply on this scheme, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm too. The scheme is for people who were born, after
Yes.
before the 1st of January 1973. So yeah, I think the having an act, if it were to close the gaps, would
Yeah.
definitely be a way forward. And those are just the gaps that are closest to me, but there are many others. So I think it would be very useful and beneficial to a lot of the Windrush victims.
Can I just move on, if I may, Maureen, Tanika, just to a question I may not advise prior, but I did want to insert this question in. The question of the functioning of the so-called Windrush compensation scheme. And of course, I'm aware of the Wendy Williams report and so on. I'm interested to hear your opinion, because I've been asked this question, but I, in turn, pass these inquiries on to legal beagles like yourself. There's an assumption that a counsellor can actually handle things. Of course, this is national legislation, therefore it's outside of our scope. Okay, the compensation scheme, is it fit for purpose?
No.
Well, that's simple enough.
Very, very simple.
And that's
Unfortunately,
trading a single word response. No.
I was going to say maybe Tanika should answer that question, because my view is very negative. She might be able to spin it and put a little positivity on it. But no, in my experience of doing Windrush work, and we've been doing this work since 2020, the way clients are treated, the delays, the incompetencies, the inconsistencies from caseworker to caseworker with different decisions. Some can't even connect the primary member to the family member. Yes. It is really not working. It really isn't. There's so many different issues with this. It's very frustrating to support a claimant going through this, which Tanika and I do all the time. We support our claimants from beginning to end. We challenge the letters, the Home Office letters. But if you've got a claimant who started in 2019, I don't know if you read the Sunday Times a couple of weeks ago, but there was an article on Mr. Ellis, who's one of our clients, and he's been in the system since 2019, and he's still. So you can imagine how frustrating that is, and it's 2024, and he still hasn't had his compensation.
That's why I asked the question: is it fit for purpose, Tanika? I'm interested to hear your take.
No, Maureen said it eloquently. I cannot add to what she said.
All right. It is a serious matter, of course. We're laughing, but it's extremely serious, because there have been many lives that have been wrecked by this hostile environment. Compensation is really to compensate those who've lost sometimes their homes, their jobs, their ability to work, and so on. It is significant and profound, Yep.
Can I add something to that, though?
Of course.
One of the things Maureen and I often bash our heads against each other trying to brainstorm is like, and again, this is a question for you as a politician and the audience. How is it the person or the institution or the body that caused the harm are the ones administering the remedy?
I'm going to respond this way, and forgive me if it sounds political. It's because we have the wrong government. Full stop. That's what I say on the subject. And general elections have consequences. That's all I'm going to say on the subject at this time. Okay, I'd like to think a new government would perform better. Okay, one that would appreciate and be sensitive to the needs of the people, ordinary people. And in this instance, whilst the my own party leader has given strong support for the Windrush case, we're interested to see what happens in respect of our manifesto commitments. And if it's in the manifesto, or a clear steer is given by the shadow Home Secretary, I believe the new government would make changes that will be deep and fundamental, ensure that Home Office have the appropriate resources to deliver the scheme that is fit for purpose. That is my aspiration for my own party, and I'll be campaigning internally that is the case. That is the case. Okay, so
Can I implore you to campaign a bit differently insofar as why leave the scheme with the Home Office? They've been the institutions that over the years have caused this harm to happen.
yes.
Should it not be with an independent adjudicator?
I think
They can hold the purse strings.
yes, I'm inclined to agree with you, and this is where we all need to coordinate our efforts and make those recommendations to the party. Okay, but let's do that offline, and we'll come forward again. The people that work together grow together. Yeah, we profit together. Okay. Can I at this point, and I notice that Ronan isn't with us, but he's asked if I would read out this particular caption, which I suspect you'll both be well aware, that there is a international forum on the Windrush compensation scheme on the 27th, or indeed today, forgive me, today, from if I got this right, and maybe Ronan should have been here, from 5:15 to 8:15 GMT, or London time. Okay. Now, the details of which it will be held. This particular meeting will be held here in London, in Brixton, in the Brixton Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is on Swantley Street in Brixton, and I'll give the postcode out, which is S for sugar W4 7Q. And he's not given us the last digit, but I'm sure it's easily found. I understand that there is an opportunity to log online. I'm not able to give out the online details because that's a unique Zoom details, and I understand that might cause problems with my YouTube channel. But so I won't give that out, but I will distribute the details throughout the network immediately after this transmission. Okay. So if I now get into the last of my questions, how can my listeners and viewers support the Windrush Legal Advice Clinic, get involved in or indeed get involved in the National Windrush Campaign movement? Do you have contact details that I can share with the audience?
Yes, we're based in Wolverhampton, and we have a website, www.legaladviceclinic.com.
Oh, I may be able to help you here. I'll put it on the screen, I think. There you go. There you are.
Oh, there you go. That's where you can contact us. We also have a GoFundMe page because we are still in the process of raising funds for Rafa's father's judicial review. So if you get onto that link, share, donate, and see if we can get this matter before the judicial review. That would be great.
Okay. Let's see if I can just get up the do you just give out the GoFundMe details once more? Sorry, I want to see if I can get it up on my screen very quickly.
Let me. Do you want the login?
Yeah, just give us the name of the if it's an event. Sorry, GoFundMe, and it is / there's a name after that, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's the login details is HTTPS.
Okay.
After the / it's gofund.me /53186 DD0, and that will take you straight to the GoFundMe page where you're able to share.
Just to say.
Oh, sorry, was it too? Sorry, that's that Jamaican.
Too fast. Slower.
GoFundMe. GoFund.me.
Yep.
/
Yeah.
53186 DD for Delta 0, and that will take you to the page.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how much are you trying to raise? May I ask you?
We're trying to raise £30,000 at the moment. It's £10,000 to the judicial review, but obviously there's going to be costs incurs along the way. And you do, obviously, Mr. Rafa knows this, that there's a potential of, should he lose, the cost that he might have to pay after losing, which runs into between 80 and £100,000. So £30,000 is a drop in the ocean. Should he lose a judicial review, he has to pay all the costs of the case. So we really want to try and raise funds just in case.
Okay, all right. And what I'll do in my next week's show, I'll have all the details on screen for those who are listening and viewing, so that, and I will distribute the information throughout the network. More than 150,000 distribution will go out over the next 24 or 48 hours. So just to make sure, Mr. Rafa, we ensure that you have the resources you need to fight what is a really important case, very important case. And I think we can all appreciate the implications of it. So, Nika, yes.
Can I just share our organization's details with you?
Yes.
We're a Liverpool-based organization, and just for those people who are in Liverpool or close to Liverpool and need support, then please do contact us. Our website detail is www.liverpooladvocateforwindrush.org. Once you get
Liverpool Advocate for Windrush.
Advocates for Windrush.org.
Okay.
And once you get to our website, the landing page, we have a questionnaire, a live questionnaire there at the moment. We're specifically targeting people or residents of Merseyside. So if you can, it'll take maybe about 10 minutes for you to complete. We're trying to understand how we can better support you with your Windrush schemes applications.
Brilliant.
So please take a few minutes and visit the site. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you very much for your work there. It's very, very important work. Mr. Rafa, can I just give you your last word, your last commentary on your case, and how you're feeling and what support you'd welcome from the community. We mentioned the GoFundMe page. What else can we do for you?
Right. First of all, I want to say that I really want to say thank you to Maureen and Tanika for the work that they've done with me. It's very, very difficult when you're outside of the UK to get support from within the UK. And so these two organizations have done a lot of work for me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity here to have the audience hear my story, understand. I think it's very important. I think if this were to succeed, it would help people understand better the implications of the different types of legislation that was implemented, and it'll help people understand their rights. People, I believe, outside of the UK now, have rights that they don't understand that they have. I think the Home Office is aware that they have those rights, and they are not willing to, as you've said earlier, open those floodgates. So I think that's what makes this case so important. It could potentially be so wide-reaching, and it really is very simple. It's written there in the legislation. People don't want to read the legislation, or people have read the legislation and are afraid of what the original intent of the legislation was. So those just my 2 cents. I would like to thank everyone for the efforts that they've put in here.
Thank you. We will definitely continue to support you, and we're grateful that you've taken the time. I know there's a significant time difference where you are currently, but thank you for articulating an issue which affects us all. Even those who already have their stay, we are indirectly affected, because of course if you can allow a government, indeed this agency of the government, to treat your family members, your community in this manner, it then gives the government, the agency, the opportunity to treat you in that manner for other reasons. Okay. In other words, we are but one people, okay? One people. It has implications. Okay. And I recognize, and we all recognize, if we work together, we grow together. Okay. That's what I want to emphasize. Got to work together.
Sure.
So, Mr. Rafa, keep in touch. Keep in touch. I'm going to monitor this case very closely. Now that I'm aware that the resource you need are relatively modest amount, isn't it? Relatively modest. And I'm aware that amongst the African Caribbean, African communities here, in my own little political area, we own assets running to the tens of millions in my own little area of London. Okay,
right.
The rest of the country, yeah. So we definitely have the resources, but what is happening here is that we have to recognize the interconnectedness. Yeah? We are all interconnected. Okay, we cannot allow this government agency to treat us in this way. If they believe they can get away with this, they will take other liberties in other ways, and that's
so very true.
That's what we've got to defend against. Okay?
Demotivator, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Were you aware that there were 65 Commonwealth countries affected by this scheme? The Home Office has identified 65 and have them listed on their website.
I wasn't aware of 65. I understood that primarily Caribbean, but a number of West Africa. Oh, wow.
Very common misconception, and that's why I interjected to bring awareness and attention to this. So not only does the little pocket of London have tens of thousands of millions, or however figure you just said, there are 65 countries.
Gosh. So the figure will go into the billions, in other words. Yes. So, Mr. I don't know.
I was going to say, and those people abroad are not getting the notice, or they don't have the access to the scheme that these people here in the UK. I mean, Jamaica is not that far away, and they're struggling to access the scheme. Never mind all of those individuals in those 65 other countries. So this is huge.
Yes,
it's huge.
All right. I'm grateful for Tanika. 65. No, I didn't recognize 65 as a figure. I thought it was closer to 25, maybe 65.
And for the record, the Caribbean does not have 65 Caribbean islands or countries.
No. So
it has
first, really,
30.
it really was the British Empire, and anybody that was a British subject had right to enter the UK up until 1962.
Yes.
So that's you talking hundreds of millions, not hundreds of millions, millions of people.
Well, definitely millions.
Yeah.
And what you both been able to do to extend the coverage. I'll ask a few questions, and maybe Tanika will liaise outside this meeting. Maureen will liaise outside this meeting. We want to make sure, first of all, we hit that target for the GoFundMe. I think that's got to be our priority. And if those of you are listening, either through the digital radio and Galaxy Freeway, or listening via Mixcloud, go to GoFundMe. I might ask Maureen just to repeat the queries that have been raised with me on the number you quoted just now for the GoFundMe. Can you just quote the number once more? I believe there are people trying to find it but can't find it.
I do put it in the private chat. But
okay, let me have a look at that. Sorry.
Forward it onto the private chat.
I've got it. So just to be sure, it's GoFundMe/53186, and that's DD0, I assume.
That's a 0.
0, yep, DD0. Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll say it one more time for this other person, and this person is happened to be she won't mind me saying this, quite well to do. She's a businesswoman, okay, and she cares. And she cares. So I'll just give out the number one more time. So it's gofund.me /53186DD0. Okay, and there you can find the actual account, and please give generously. One would imagine that £10,000 should be easily achievable within a relatively short order. That's my assumption, but we've raised far more in much shorter time for other reasons. Okay, so Mr. Raffer, we're committed to the case. We understand its strategic importance, and we can give you all the support we can. Mr. Raffer,
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Maureen, excuse me, demotivating Maureen, what about the timeline? I think it may be imperative to mention the timeline, given now that the Home Office has given the response.
Oh gosh, sorry. Yes.
Okay.
I think the timeline, the details are within the GoFundMe page, but we do need to lodge this this appeal by the 12th of February. So it's a very short window, because what day are we on now? The 27th. And then we've got the 12th of February, which we've got to literally lodge papers on that day. If we don't lodge papers on that day, we're frozen out. We can't take any action. It's all over. And
that's because
you only have 3 months from the date of the decision letter, which Mr. Raffer's decision letter was on the 14th of November. Was it again? Remind.
13th of November.
13th of November. And that's the decision he's challenging. So they only give you 3 months from the date of the decision letter by which to bring your judicial review. So we've been putting energy into trying to raise funds since just before Christmas, but we only have after the 12th of November, 12th of February. If we don't find that £10,000, unfortunately, it's game over for us.
Right. Well, now you've raised the stakes.
Not to put any pressure on anybody.
No. Okay. I can't be quite so leisurely, in other words. I get it.
Sorry, wasn't intending that. Maureen needed to
I kind of take heed that all the information's on the page, but then I realise I'm on a different platform. I do need to verbalise it. So please, the 12th of February is the deadline, guys.
Thank you. No, thank you. And now you said it. People like me are easily distracted, but I'm alert. There are a number of meetings I'm going to today where one would imagine that the interest in this case will be sufficient that they will make at least some financial commitment to this. So I'm going to urge that happens as a matter of priority. And what we might do at my next show, I might spend 15 minutes devoted to this particular issue to ensure that we get to that 10,000 limit. Okay?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
But my time's up now. I want to thank you all for your contribution. This has been truly informative, illuminating, and most certainly surprising at times. But that was necessary to raise a consciousness, to raise awareness. That is what you'd expect to happen. Okay, yes. But it is not intended that those of you who are listening or viewing, that you now become nervous and you stand still. It is now time to act. And if you're unsure, speak to someone else about the issue, okay? So that you can encourage each other to respond, to act accordingly, okay? £10,000 in a community of just under 1 million, that should be easily achievable.
Thank you.
There you are. I just want to say to you all, thank you for being outstanding guests here. You've lived up to the reasons why this show happens, that they should be informative, empowering, and encourage members of the community to act, to take decisions that are not only for our personal benefit, but for our community's benefit. And long may that continue. I say to you both, all three of you, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you all in the flesh. Okay, Danica? Mm-hmm. What it is, let me make it clear, What it is, often I encounter people who just go along with the flow and nod their heads, yes, yes, yes. I like people who say, oh, have you thought about this? Uh-huh.
Rapper, I'm sorry. Rapper's smiling a lot.
No, but Tanika,
No, I mean,
we know
this is what I love about it, actually.
Tanika's very challenging, right? So,
Yeah,
it's always engaging.
yeah, that's why Maureen got you here. I like that. Because I was, even I was compelled to review and to think and to reconsider. Oh yeah, that is what we need in the community. That's absolutely what we need in community. Thank you all. I want you to have a good weekend, or strong, as we say here. But we will continue to support this case, and I will continue to advocate that, one, we secure the resources, and two, whatever support you ladies need in order to deliver this case on behalf of the community, please tell us what you need. And we, the community, I'm confident will respond in abundance. Thank you all. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for the platform, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now, people, wasn't that fantastic? Yeah? Wasn't that the purpose of these shows? Isn't it intended that you inform, you empowered? Not to stand still, but to move forward with a clear intention to effect change. Yeah, absolutely. Outstanding people with a community that works together, grows together. Okay. A community that works together, grows together. That's what we've got to do more often than not. And I'm confident that when we say we can raise £10,000, oh my gosh, I'm confident we can raise that £10,000 because this case is that important, not only to 1,000 people, but tens of thousands of people across our communities. Okay, there you are. Anyway, my time is almost up. All I want to say at this point in time is that if you've got ideas for subject I should tackle later this year, please drop me a line. Okay, if you're online, you can drop details on our chat facility, which will be very, very helpful. Or indeed, I will next week have an email address, which for some reason I don't have one for this show. I'll have an email address dedicated for the Motivator Show. I'll share that email address, and I look forward to your ideas of subjects that we can tackle. Okay, I'd love to do so, but please give generously. This case will be a pivotal case, but if we do not support this case, other communities would assume that we are open season against us, and that is not acceptable. But anyway, all right, okay. Now, my people, stay strong, be determined, never give up, because success is ours for the taking. If in doubt, ask your neighbors, ask whoever you trust. Remember, take care of your health. Take care of your health. Consider your lifestyle. And lastly, I've said it a number of times, this particular session, a community that works together grows together. Okay? Yeah, it's my latest saying. Yeah? A community that works together grows together. And that has got to be the way forward. That has got to be the way forward. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put on the intro video, and those of you who've not seen my initial intro video, which sets out the core contents of today's show. And I hope the content receives you well, but if in doubt, ask questions. Do not suffer in silence. So until the next storm, I remain the motivator, where we translate are words to actions, and where success is ours for the taking. British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush compensation scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush Compensation Scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. British Nationality Act 1948, Chapter 56. Every person who under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, or who under any enactment for the time being in force in any country mentioned in subsection 3, is a citizen of that country, shall, by virtue of the citizenship, they have status of a British subject. British subject. The Windrush compensation scheme is open to persons who have a right of abode or settled status, or are now a British citizen and arrived to live in the UK before the 31st of December 1988. The Windrush Act is an act of restitution. Since 1948, the citizenship of those who arrived on the Windrush and that of their descendants has been repeatedly eroded, particularly by the 1971 Immigration Act and by the current hostile environment. This erosion leaves many within the African Caribbean cohort finding themselves British in all but name, and therefore having to prove their Britishness when it was Britain that eroded and undermined their Britishness in the first place. The Windrush Act fully restores the Britishness of this cohort. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Granddad. Thank you, Grandmum. We are proud of you. The Motivator Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. Follow us on Facebook. Give us the thumbs up and share with your family and friends. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast.